بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم
اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ حی علی الصلاۃ حی علی الصلاۃ حی علی الفلاح حی علی الفلاح اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر لا الہ الا اللہ
اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ وحدہ لا شریک لہ واشہد ان محمدا عبدہ ورسولہ اما بعد فاعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. This is chapter 2, verse 164, which I recited last time as well. Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ardi wa ikhtilafil layli wan nahari wal fulk التي تجري في البحر بما ينفع الناس وما أنزل الله من السماء من ماء فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها وبث فيها من كل دابة وتصريف الرياح والسحاب المسخر بين السماء والأرض لآيات لقوم يعقلون. In the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of night and day, and the ships that run in the sea, with that which profits men, and water, and the water that Allah sends down from the sky, then gives life therewith to the earth after its death. and spreads in it all kinds of animals. And the changing of the winds and the clouds made subservient between heaven and earth. There are surely signs for a people who understand. The next one is again chapter 38, verse 27, which is again the verse that I recited last week. وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاءَ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا بَاطِلًا ذَلِكَ ظَنُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَوَيْلٌ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنَ النَّارِ. And we created not the heaven and the earth and what is between them in vain. That is the opinion of those who disbelieve. So woe to those who disbelieve on account of fire. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim. Before we start, I want to request you to, during the prayer, pray for everyone who's sick or having some other difficulty or problem, that Allah may keep the whole of humanity safe and sound and free from harm. And after the prayers, we'll say other prayers for a few members who passed away, and for the people in Lebanon and West Bank in Palestine and Gaza who are giving their lives to try and maintain some dignity and freedom. I recited these verses last week as well. And I repeated them because we are continuing with the topic of existence of God from last week. See, the atheist has a common double standard. And they say, when people talk about existence of God, they demand empirical evidence of God from millions, if not billions, of believers. But they happily accept things that they have never personally observed or tested. Because some great scientist says, well, nowadays not even some great scientist says, because it's on CNN or BBC or whatever it is. If you're going to believe something that a great scientist said, why don't you believe what Moses or Jesus or Aaron or the Holy Prophet Muhammad said? They were great people as well. But no, when they say something, it has to have empirical evidence. And they believe in scientific findings or historical research. And they say, well, our beliefs are based on these facts. But then they don't have any first-hand experience of these so-called facts. Whereas they dismiss what the believers say about their experience of God. The experience of others, just because a title of science or scientist or doctor is attached, that somehow makes things believable. But the thing is this, many of these things that scientists have been saying have proven to be wrong. Newton said that the formula force equals mass times acceleration explains how a force causes something to accelerate. And you change the force, you change the acceleration. Mass always remains the same. But Einstein came and said, no, that's incorrect. Let's see what happens if mass changes as well. If force acting on a body changes, it can change its mass. And we had a new theory. But no one said, well, Newton got it completely wrong. So we are not going to believe in other things that Newton said. And so it carries on. They say we can't see God, so why should we believe in him? Well, you can't see electrons, why do you believe in them? You can't see black holes, why do you believe in them? Well, there is empirical evidence. Well, have you seen the evidence? No, Mr. XYZ and his astronomer at NASA said this. So you're doing exactly the same things as believers. There is no difference. But this doctor gave an interesting argument. And he said that as a medical student, he was taught about something called Korsakoff's psychosis. It's a mental condition, and it is caused by heavy use of alcohol, and over a period of time, it results in memory problems. And people, they may remember what happened in the past, but they can't remember anything that is current. And he says this, using the philosophy of the atheist, I decided I didn't believe that such a condition existed. It was just too far-fetched for me. After all, I had never seen a patient with it in real life, and I definitely wasn't just going to believe whatever was on a sheet of paper or told to me by a so-called expert. No, that would be brainwashing. I wasn't going to be brainwashed. 5 years later, as a junior doctor, while working on the wards, I met a patient with this Korsakoff's psychosis, displaying very similar symptoms to those I had read about half a decade earlier. You must think I felt quite a fool for disbelieving all this time. Actually, no, I still disbelieved. Why? Because other explanations were still possible. Perhaps the patient in front of me was faking it. Maybe I was hallucinating. So there are always all these alternative explanations. Then he goes on to say, why am I telling you this entirely serious story? It is to demonstrate that atheists use a different set of criteria when assessing the validity of a scientific hypothesis as compared to the hypothesis of God's existence. When we are given a lecture on a scientific concept, we do not immediately disbelieve in it because we haven't seen or experienced it for ourselves. Rather, we accept the claim that is made simply because it is given to us by an expert. We trust them out of a type of informed faith. Why not do the same with the thousands and thousands of individuals who claimed that they have had some kind of a divine experience? That's a good question. There are millions. So, when millions of believers urge atheists to use their senses to contemplate the universe, encouraging them to question its creator, and then asking them to explore and test the claims by believers, why do atheists fail to take this step? Why don't they treat it as a scientific experiment? But at least, the least they can do is not to have double standards and illogical demands when they ask for proof of God's existence. If atheists don't want to put the effort into this, that's a different question. But to deny God based on illogical questioning about seeing him with human eyes, etc., is in itself unscientific. And that is where the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, came in. Because he asked such people to go and sit with him in Qadian for a short period, and he will show them God. He'll make them experience God. People think, that all these things are invented, these philosophies and theories are invented in their time. In his time, you had Muslims with lots of different facts, and Hindus with lots of different sects, and Hindus with lots of different sects, and Jews and Christians and atheists. They all existed. They haven't just sprung up in the last 10, 15 years, contrary to what people would tell you. And this was his challenge to them. Come to Qadian. But it's not going to happen in 10 minutes. Do you think Rutherford came to the conclusion that the structure of atom is like that of our solar system in 10 minutes? He spent years researching it, etc. But when it's proof of existence of God, you want it in 10 minutes. You want me to give you this bit of paper, just like, F equals ma, and that has an equation written on it. Oh, yeah, that proves God. And this is where Lahori Ahmadis are different from all other Muslims. Others, what will they say? They will say, chop off his head. This is in a Muslim majority country. How dare he question the existence of God? This is blasphemy. This is this is that. Is he questioning what the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? But we don't say that. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said, come on then. Come to Qadian and I'll show you God exists. And the best answer to the atheist is what Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad gave. And that is that God speaks. He speaks to human beings. And that is the atheist's objection. I can't hear him, I can't see him, why should I believe in him? I can't perceive him, so how do I know? And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said that God still speaks to human beings. And if you come to Qadian and if you sit with me, I will prove it to you. And there are two ways in which God can speak to a human. One is by granting his prayer. And another way is by not granting a prayer. And that is the interesting thing. That is the interesting thing. People say, well, if there was a God, he would have granted my prayer. What? Even if it's going to harm you in the future, he should grant that prayer. And then in the future, when you're harmed, you would say, oh God, you knew what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. You knew. So why didn't you grant my prayer? I'll give you two personal examples. I worked in central London, and I had to walk to Slough Station, then catch one train and get off at Paddington and catch an underground, then get off that underground and catch another underground and get to the office. And it used to take 2.5 hours and cost a lot of money and so on. And I found a computer installation of my employers near Heathrow at a place called Harmondsworth. And I thought, oh, this is good. All I have to do is catch one bus, and that stops outside that installation, and just get off and go in. Instead of 2.5 hours, it'll take me half an hour. And instead of thousands of pounds, it'll be a few £100. And I tried. I applied. My boss applied. The director of our division tried. But I could not get a transfer to that computer center. And I used to moan and complain. I haven't asked for much, I would say. It's just a transfer from A to B. Why aren't you granting that, God? But what happened was that many years later, that computer center was shut down and everyone made redundant. They weren't even given the chance to apply for transfers. They just lost their jobs. And then I realized that God was speaking to me. God is telling me, you stupid person, I was looking after your welfare. You couldn't see what's going to happen in 7 years' time, but I can see. I could see. And I was protecting you from yourself. But for 7 years, I kept on complaining. Why? And there's another personal example. And that is that some years ago, we decided that we wanted to, I decided I wanted to build a house by a river. So that, in the evening, we'd be able to sit in the sitting room or whatever and see boats go by, and sun will be setting over the river and it'll be so beautiful and so on. And I went to see many places, and we couldn't finalize any deal. A couple of them, the negotiations were quite advanced, but then, they fell through. And I again wondered, why can't I buy a piece of land by the shores of a river? What is the problem? And the problem transpired this year and last year, when most of the rivers in England flooded the properties on their banks, and people living in them were made homeless. And now those people cannot get insurance for their homes. Again, by not answering my prayers, God was protecting me. So as I said, God, the best proof that God exists is that he speaks to you in two ways. One is by accepting your prayers, and another is by not accepting your prayers. And many holy people like Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and Maulana Abdul Haq Vidyarthi and Maulana Muhammad Ali and so on, they had true dreams and they had visions and so on, in which God showed them things that came true. For example, when Maulana Abdul Haq's wife died, he was in Suriname. And at that time, the only way you could travel from Suriname to Pakistan or Pakistan to Suriname was by sea. in a ship, and it would take 3 or 4 months. But his wife died, and the following week, we received a letter from him saying, after the Hajjat, I was sitting down and I had a vision that my wife has passed away. How did he know? There was no possible way of getting through to him. A letter would have taken a month. But we, within a week of his wife dying, we received this letter that I saw a vision in which my wife has passed away. Perhaps you haven't let me know because I'm alone in a strange country. This is God speaking to someone. Who told him? So I request people to be at least balanced and don't use double standards when talking about believing in God or existence of God, as opposed to other things that they blindly believe in. People say so-and-so's got schizophrenia. Has anyone seen schizophrenia? So-and-so's got depression. Has anyone seen depression? And hundreds of other mental illnesses. Who has seen them? And yet we believe in them. We've given them names. So let's not be hasty. And I would suggest that people who are saying that God doesn't exist and you shouldn't believe in him are actually raising themselves to the status of Godhead, because they're telling us what we should believe rather than letting other people come to their own conclusion. بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك بر رحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسول. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر، اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ، اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ، حی علی الصلاۃ حی علی الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاۃ قد قامت الصلاۃ، اللہ اکبر لا الہ الا اللہ، اللہ اکبر۔ الحمد للہ رب العالمین، الرحمن الرحیم، مالک یوم الدین، ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین، اہدنا الصراط المستقیم، صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین، آمین۔ الہاکم التکاثر حتی زرتم المقابر، کلا سوف تعلمون ثم کلا سوف تعلمون، کلا لو تعلمون علم الیقین لترون الجحیم ثم لترونها عین الیقین ثم لتسألن یومئذ عن النعیم، اللہ اکبر۔ سمیع اللہ لمن حمدہ، ربنا اللہ اکبر۔ اللہ اکبر، اللہ اکبر، اللہ اکبر۔ الحمد للہ رب العالمین، الرحمن الرحیم، مالک یوم الدین، ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین، اہدنا الصراط المستقیم، صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین، آمین۔ والعصر ان الانسان لفی خسر الا الذین آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر، اللہ اکبر۔ سمیع اللہ لمن حمدہ، ربنا اللہ اکبر۔ اللہ اکبر، اللہ اکبر۔ اللہ اکبر، Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. Min kulli dhanbin. Allahumma inka salam. Minka salam. Tabarakta. Wa ta'alayta ya Rabbi. We will now say the funeral prayers of people who passed away, as I mentioned. This is 4 takbeers, as you would all know. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining us for today's Friday service. I hope you found it useful. If you have any suggestions for topics and things, please do let us know. Your comments and suggestions help us to improve our service to you. With the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, regardless of your caste, creed, religion, sect, color, etc., may Allah keep you safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.